Dream of the Red Chamber Chapter 72.
We are going deep into the backstage machinery of the estate.
Because honestly, the shadows of the household are often where the most visceral, authentic history actually happens.
Yeah, exactly. The front of the house is performance.
And the back of the house is survival.
Exactly. We are exploring the hidden lives, the crushing pressures, and the intense loyalties of the women operating behind those scenes.
It's a completely different world back there.
It really is. We have two parallel stories of dangerous secrets today. One is about a forbidden romance, and the other is about a life-threatening illness.
And putting those two stories side by side reveals so much.
It does. We're going to discover the actual mechanics of survival in this incredibly rigid society. We'll look at the vulnerability of the lowest-ranking servants, all the way up to the most powerful woman running the entire estate.
The contrast between those two extremes really highlights the architecture of power. The rules change depending on your status, but the demand for secrecy remains a constant.
So true. So let's start with the lowest rung of the ladder and unpack this first secret. The inciting incident is it's incredibly cinematic.
Oh, it paints such a vivid picture.
Right. We have this maid named Yang, and she literally stumbles out of a side gate in the estate's sprawling garden.
Her heart is pounding, face is flushed.
Yeah, because she's just interrupted something she was absolutely not supposed to see, a highly forbidden tryst.
And, I mean, forbidden is almost too light a word for this context.
Right.
For a maid in this household engaging in an unauthorized romance, it's a violation of the fundamental order of the estate.
To understand the gravity of this, you really have to know the backstory of the girl who got caught. Her name is Siki.
She's a maid, right?
Yes, a maid. And she and her cousin were childhood sweethearts. When they were little, they made these innocent, secret vows to each other.
Like kids do. But as they grew older, the stakes obviously shifted.
Exactly. They realized there was a real, profound attraction there. But they also knew their parents would never, ever approve of a match.
And the physical reality of Siki's life is crucial to understand here.
Yeah, lay that out for us.
Well, she is locked inside this massive aristocratic compound. She can't simply, leave the grounds to go on a date or meet someone at a market.
Right, her entire existence is geographically contained.
Exactly. The desperation builds because she just has no autonomy.
So they resort to bribery. They bribe the old women who guard the inner garden gates just so they can finally meet up in secret.
Which is incredibly risky.
Huge risk. But tonight was the night. They finally meet in the dark, and they, well, as the text translates it, they entered the harbor.
Yeah, and that specific phrase, entered the harbor, it carries a lot of weight.
What does it imply, exactly?
It implies they had their first real romantic encounter. They were exchanging tokens, making concrete pledges to one another.
Wow.
It was the culmination of years of waiting, just a moment of profound vulnerability and commitment.
But right at that peak moment of romantic tension, Yang interrupts them. She surprises them in the dark.
The worst possible timing.
And what happens next just completely blows my mind. The boy Siki's childhood sweetheart, the guy she just risked her life to meet, he instantly bolts.
He just takes off,
He crashes through the willow trees, slips out the side gate, and vanishes into the night.
leaving her entirely alone.
Yes, he leaves Siki standing there, completely alone, to face the devastating consequences.
The abandonment is swift and just absolute. And to compound the betrayal, Siki finds out later from another servant that he hasn't just fled the garden.
Wait, really? Where did he go?
He fled the entire area. He's been missing from his home for days, and his family is actively out looking for him. He completely erased himself from the situation.
I gotta say, I have to push back on the framing of this as some grand, tragic romance.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, when you strip away the poetry, think about like a modern-day heist movie.
Okay, I'm tracking.
You have a crew robbing a bank, and the moment the police sirens wail, the getaway driver just hits the gas and leaves the vault cracker inside to take the fall.
That's a brutal comparison.
But is it wrong? I mean, is this really a tragic love story? Or is this just a guy choosing the most cowardly option available and utterly abandoning his partner when the pressure spikes?
It definitely looks like a pure betrayal on the surface, absolutely. But if we look at the mechanics of the intense gender dynamics of the era, the situation becomes much more complex.
How so? Because he still ran.
He did. He panicked and ran because the structure of his world gave him the option to run.
Oh, I see.
He possesses the physical freedom to leave the estate, to disappear into the broader world, and to essentially reinvent himself or hide until the heat dies down.
And Siki does not have that geographic or social luxury at all.
Not even a little. She is a woman and a servant, trapped within the walls of this specific household.
She literally has nowhere to run. If she tries to leave, she is a runaway servant with no money, no protection, and no identity.
Exactly. For the boy, getting caught might mean disgrace, maybe a severe beating from his family. But for Siki, exposure means absolute ruin.
It's a totally different scale of consequence.
Completely. The mechanics of the household dictate that she would be expelled, her reputation irreparably destroyed.
Which is essentially a death sentence in this society, right?
In many ways, yes. Being an expelled, disgraced woman often equated to a death sentence. She'd have no marriage prospects, no way to earn a living.
Wow.
She would likely be driven to suicide due to the overwhelming shame brought upon her family.
And you really see that terrifying reality hit her physical body.
Oh, absolutely. The toll is immediate.
Yeah, she doesn't just get the sniffles after this encounter in the garden. She experiences a profound physical collapse. The text describes her as bedridden and deteriorating rapidly.
She is essentially paralyzed.
Just from the stress.
Yeah, it's a somatic manifestation of two crushing weights. First, the sheer existential terror of being exposed at any moment.
And the second,
The deep, traumatic heartbreak of realizing that her lover, the boy she risked her life for, had a fundamental lack of affection.
he prioritized his own safety and left her to face the executioner.
Exactly. The betrayal and the fear mutate into this severe, life-threatening illness.
The psychological burden literally breaks her down, which forces this incredible confrontation.
Right, because she can't hide forever.
No. Siki is bedridden, waiting for the axe to fall. And who walks into her sick room? Yang, the very woman who caught her.
The one person who holds Siki's life entirely in her hands.
Think about the spike of adrenaline you'd feel if you were Siki, lying helpless in bed, watching the one person who could destroy your life walk through the door.
The power imbalance in that room must have been suffocating.
It must have been paralyzing. But the thing is, Yang hasn't come to blackmail her. She hasn't come to gloat or exert dominance at all.
No, she has a very different motive.
She comes because she realizes that her mere existence is terrifying Siki to death. Yang feels genuine empathy.
Which is a beautiful moment of humanity in such a strict system.
He really is. She dismisses the other servants from the room, stands over Siki's bed, and swears a deadly oath.
A literal blood oath, essentially.
Yeah. She says, "If I tell a single soul, may I die immediately."
The oath is such a fascinating mechanism in this culture.
How does it function here, practically speaking?
Well, by swearing it, Yang is actively disarming the weapon she holds.
Oh, I like that phrasing. Disarming the weapon.
Right, she recognizes that as long as the secret is unspoken and unpromised, it hangs over Siki's head like a guillotine.
So the oath acts as a cure.
Exactly. It's a binding contract of silence, specifically designed to cure Siki's terror.
And Siki's reaction is just intensely visceral. She breaks down crying, physically gripping Yang.
The relief must have been overwhelming.
She promises to set up a longevity tablet for her, to pray for her daily. She even vows that if she dies, she will reincarnate as a dog or a donkey just to repay the debt of saving her life.
That really shows the depth of her gratitude, but then she shifts, right?
Yes. Then she says something that completely stops you in your tracks. Something so deeply profound.
She moves from frantic gratitude to this intense philosophical clarity.
Exactly. This teenage maid, crying in her sickbed, drops this incredibly poetic dialogue. She quotes an old proverb. She says, "A 1,000-mile awning must end. There is no feast that doesn't scatter."
That is just gorgeous imagery.
It's stunning. And then she compares them to floating duckweed, saying that maybe, just maybe, they might meet again someday.
The duckweed metaphor is so crucial here.
I really want you listening to think about how profound that is. These are servants. They are treated as literal property by the aristocracy upstairs.
But they have this deep understanding of their world.
Exactly. They possess this deeply philosophical understanding of the impermanence of their own lives.
And that duckweed metaphor is the key to understanding their entire class consciousness.
Break that down for us. What does the duckweed represent?
Well, duckweed is a tiny, rootless plant that just floats on the surface of the water. It's entirely at the mercy of the currents.
Just drifting wherever the water takes it.
Right. It gets pushed together into clumps by forces it cannot control, and it's pulled apart just as easily.
So they know they're just temporary cogs in a massive
Yeah.
machine.
Exactly. They have no roots in this estate, no permanent claim to the wealth or the physical space.
And the solidarity between them is born out of that exact realization.
Yes, Yuan Yang explicitly tells Siki that she has no desire to, ruin your reputation to curry favor.
She knows it wouldn't even help her anyway.
Right, she understands the mechanics of the aristocratic machine well enough to know she gains absolutely nothing by destroying another woman just to score points with masters who view them both as completely disposable.
It's so pragmatic. Both women recognize that the system does not care about them.
Therefore, their ability to keep each other's secrets is a vital, calculated survival mechanism against the rigid rules of the household.
Solidarity as a survival mechanism. It's brilliant.
It really is.
Now, if shared secrets are how the powerless maids survive at the bottom of the hierarchy, you might assume the woman at the very top operates entirely differently.
You would think so, given her power.
But when Yuan Yang leaves the maids' quarters, we see the exact same dynamic playing out at the highest level of management.
The narrative structure of the text brilliantly connects these two seemingly opposite worlds.
It's such a great pivot. So Yuan Yang visits the courtyard of Wang Xifeng. And for those unfamiliar with the sprawling cast of this novel, Xifeng is the powerful, ruthless manager of this entire estate.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, completely. She is the ultimate boss. She oversees hundreds of people, manages massive budgets, and maintains the strict discipline of the household.
But when Yuan Yang arrives, she doesn't actually see Xifeng.
Right. She finds Xifeng's right-hand woman, her confidant, Pinger.
And Pinger serves as the gatekeeper to Xifeng's reality. She's the one who reveals that this illusion of control is fracturing.
Pinger confides that Xifeng has been incredibly lethargic and sickly for over a month.
Which is highly unusual for her.
Right. And here's the part that feels so universally recognizable. Despite clearly being seriously ill, Xifeng outright refuses to see a doctor.
She just won't do it.
She swallows her pain, she gets furious if anyone even asks how she's feeling, and she continues to obsessively micromanage the household.
Pinger notes she is still out there investigating everything.
Yeah, she's weaponizing denial to maintain her position. Think about a highly ambitious, modern-day executive.
Oh, the parallels are striking.
The type of leader who views taking a sick day as a fatal vulnerability. She is terrified that if the elder matriarchs and her rivals in the family see a fracture in her armor, she will lose her authority.
She is literally working herself to death to project an aura of absolute invincibility.
And why does she feel she has to do that?
Well, the mechanics of Xifeng's power explain it perfectly. She possesses immense authority, yes, but that power is entirely dependent on her perceived competence and physical endurance.
So it's not a guaranteed position.
No, she doesn't rule by divine right or birthright alone. She rules because the elder matriarchs deem her capable of ruling.
So the hierarchy of this household is a zero-sum game.
Exactly. The moment she shows weakness, the machinery turns against her.
They just replace her.
Oh, immediately. The elder matriarchs would actively step in, citing her health, and strip her of her managerial duties.
And what about her rivals?
Her rivals, cousins, and other wives waiting in the wings, they would eagerly absorb her responsibilities.
So it's a completely cutthroat environment.
Deeply political. In this environment, losing your utility means losing your status, your comfort, and your protection.
So her relentless micromanagement isn't just a quirky personality trait.
Not at all. It is a desperate trauma response to her precarious status.
Wow.
She has to control every tiny detail because letting go of even one suggests she is no longer fit to survive at the top.
We understand why Xifeng is terrified to show illness, but we need to examine what this illness actually is.
Because the nature of the disease is what makes her secrecy a literal matter of life and death.
Right. The way Pinger reveals it to Yuan Yang is chilling. They are in an empty room, completely alone, yet Pinger still leans in and whispers the diagnosis directly into Yuan Yang's ear.
The physical act of whispering in an empty room, it demonstrates the immense weight of the cultural taboo they are navigating.
Pinger whispers that ever since Yinfen's last period, over a month ago, she has suffered from continuous, unstoppable bleeding.
A severe, life-threatening hemorrhage.
And Yuan Yang immediately gasps in recognition. She calls it blood collapse, which is the literal translation of the term.
In the moment she says those words out loud, Pinger physically recoils.
Yeah, she spits on the ground to ward off bad luck. and she aggressively scolds Yuanyang for cursing Xifeng simply by saying the name of the disease.
This reaction exposes the deadly intersection of medical ignorance and societal shame regarding the female body.
But I have to ask, why is simply naming a medical condition treated as an act of curse? How can anyone possibly cure a hemorrhage if they are culturally forbidden from naming it out loud?
That's the core of the tragedy. The taboo is the actual disease here.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, in this era, the female body, specifically concerning menstruation and reproduction, was viewed through a thick lens of pollution, impurity, and profound shame.
So it wasn't seen as a normal biological function.
Not at all. It was not treated as a mechanical, biological issue. It was framed as a moral or spiritual failing.
And that stigma prevents any objective scientific intervention.
Exactly. Because there was no open, accessible medical vocabulary available to these women, they had to rely on euphemisms, terrified whispers, and superstition.
Like Pinger spitting on the floor.
Right. Pinger's reaction of spitting and accusing Yuanyang of a curse shows the deeply ingrained belief that acknowledging the disease out loud gives it power.
They believe the word itself manifests the reality.
Yes.
The horrific irony is that not acknowledging it is what guarantees it will kill her. The silence is doing the damage.
The lack of open discussion turns a potentially treatable medical condition into a slow execution.
Xifeng is bleeding out day after day.
Yet the culture she manages, the very system she fiercely upholds, demands she keep her suffering a complete secret.
Silence itself becomes the killer.
And the transmission of this knowledge is just as tragic if you think about it.
Oh, you mean how Yuanyang even knew what it was?
Exactly. The only reason Yuanyang even knows the term blood collapse is because she reveals her own older sister died of the exact same condition.
Which is heartbreaking.
And Yuanyang only learned about it by secretly eavesdropping on her mother, talking in hushed, terrified tones after the funeral.
So the knowledge of how women's bodies work and how they fail was entirely gatekept from the women themselves.
That detail perfectly illustrates how generational silence operates in practice. The older sister died because the culture demanded silence.
And now Xifeng is dying because she is trapped by that same silence.
It is a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle maintained by a society that refuses to look at the reality of female biology without shame.
Okay, let's shift scenes.
Imagine you are walking past one of those massive, ultra-exclusive mega mansions.
Oh yeah, like the ones with the massive gates.
Right, exactly. The pristine wrought iron gates, the perfectly manicured hedges, and, a circular driveway that is just completely filled with imported sports cars.
Just screaming wealth.
Exactly. It looks like absolute perfection. It radiates this, pure, untouchable wealth. But then you peek through a tiny crack in the fence, and you see the owner standing in the dark, desperately running an orange extension cord across the lawn to their neighbor's house.
Because their electricity just got shut off.
Because they couldn't pay the bill.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the ultimate illusion, right?
Totally.
The exterior is broadcasting infinite generational resources, but the interior reality is just pure, unadulterated panic. We are stepping into the VIP room.
On paper, the family in the text, they have it all.
Oh yeah, they literally have an imperial concubine in the family.
Which is huge, and rooms just filled with gold chiming clocks, literal armies of servants.
But when you actually look at the source material we're diving into today, you realize it's basically a masterclass in secret economics.
It's wild. It's this high-stakes scramble of secret pawning, marital extortion,
and forced marriages.
Yes, all of it.
We're looking at the mechanics of extreme wealth and how it frequently operates as this highly decorated house of cards.
Right, because of the pressure.
Exactly. The intense pressure to maintain face, that public reputation of wealth and harmony, it forces people into incredible acts of financial and moral gymnastics just to keep the lights on.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because to really understand the scale of this financial rot, we can't just start by, looking at their bank accounts.
No, you have to look for the cracks.
Right. We have to start with a tiny crack in the facade. And in our source text, that crack is a missing luxury item.
It's such a brilliant setup for the chaos that follows. So we open on two high-ranking maids, Pinger and Yuanyang.
Okay.
And they are currently hiding out in a room, actively dodging this incredibly annoying official matchmaker.
Right, Zhu Danyang.
Yeah, Zhu Danyang, who just won't stop pestering them about setting up marriages.
And so into this room walks Jialian, the husband of the household.
He is on an absolute tear.
He's frantic, He is frantically hunting for one specific, highly bizarre item. It's a wax yellow agate citron.
Which sounds very fancy.
Right, but for you listening, picture a piece of semi-precious agate stone carved to look like a specific citrus fruit called a Buddha's hand.
Which basically looks like a creepy yellow hand with long, grasping fingers.
Yeah, it's super weird looking. But it was gifted by a foreign monk for the grandmother's recent birthday, and Jolene is literally tearing the place apart looking for it.
Right, and he claims he needs to log it in the antique ledger immediately.
Like it's some official business.
Exactly. But Pinger, the maid, she is not buying it for a second.
She totally roasts him.
She does. She roasts him on the spot, revealing that his own wife, Xifeng, already took the Buddha's hand and hid it away.
Specifically so he couldn't give it away to someone else to settle a favor.
Right. And she mocks his terrible memory, saying he, forgets everything and then accuses the staff of hiding things.
It's a very funny, very real domestic moment. But, reading through the notes, I kind of had to push back on the underlying logic here.
What do you mean?
Well, if this family is basically royalty, why is the husband having a meltdown over one single agate ornament?
Oh, I see.
Shouldn't they have massive storerooms full of these things? It feels like a modern Nepo baby frantically tearing through his penthouse to locate a misplaced Rolex so he can pawn it before his accountant notices the trust fund is overdrawn.
That analogy, that hits closer to reality than you might think.
Really?
Yeah, because his obsession with this one missing Buddha's hand isn't about diligent inventory management. It is a symptom of a systemic, catastrophic financial drought.
Wow.
Jillian is in the middle of an extreme, immediate cash flow panic.
And the numbers mentioned in the text are just staggering. They just threw a massive birthday celebration for the grandmother.
Which they had to do.
Right, mandatory. And that single event drained thousands of taels of silver.
Right, and to put that in perspective for the listener, a tael was a unit of silver weight. In this era, a single tael of silver could essentially feed a peasant family for an entire month.
A whole month from one tael.
Yes. So when we say the party costs thousands of taels, we are talking about millions of dollars in modern purchasing power.
Just evaporated in a single weekend.
Exactly. Poof. Gone.
And their actual income hasn't hit the bank yet. The text mentions that their rents and taxes won't arrive until September.
Which is a long way off.
I was wondering why September specifically, but it makes sense, right? This is a fundamentally agrarian society.
Yes, exactly.
The wealth of these aristocratic families is tied up in massive land holdings. You don't get a biweekly direct deposit. You get paid when the autumn harvest comes in.
Right. You have to survive the summer on whatever cash you have on hand.
And they have zero cash on hand.
None. But the spending doesn't pause for the agricultural cycle.
Of course not.
Gia Lion lists off this whole series of looming mandatory social expenses. They have to send lavish gifts to the Nanan mansion.
Right.
They have to prepare tribute for the imperial concubines' Double Ninth Festival.
Which is a major deal, isn't it? The Double Ninth Festival falls on the 9th day of the 9th lunar month.
Right.
And it's all about paying respects to ancestors and the elderly. If you have an imperial concubine in the family, your tribute better be spectacular.
Because the entire royal court is watching you.
Right. You can't just send a generic gift basket.
No, definitely not. And on top of that, he mentions the upcoming red and white gifts.
Yeah.
For you listening in Chinese culture, red is the color of joy, used for weddings, and white is the color of mourning, used for funerals.
So as a leading aristocratic family, they are expected to send massive financial gifts to other noble families whenever someone gets married or dies.
Exactly. And Jillian calculates that between the festival and these red and white gifts, he is short 2,000 to 3,000 taels of silver.
So he is staring down a multi-million-dollar shortfall. The rent check is months away, and he has absolutely nowhere to get the cash. And you listening might be thinking, well, why don't they just quietly decline a wedding invitation?
Just RSVP no.
Right. Skip a gift, say it got lost in the mail.
But they can't. Because in this society, those social obligations are the absolute foundation of their power.
Wow.
If you fail to meet them, the facade drops. And the moment you lose your social standing, you lose your political alliances.
And the credit with the merchants dries up.
Exactly. Your authority over your own servants vanishes. It's this interconnected web of performative wealth.
So here's where it gets really interesting, because desperation breeds innovation.
Or in Jillian's case, it breeds a highly risky, frankly hilarious inside job.
Yes. Since he can't rely on his actual income, he decides to basically rob his own grandmother.
He does. He pitches this scheme directly to the maid, Yang.
Because she's the one who holds the keys. Right.
Exactly. She manages the grandmother's personal storerooms.
So he sits this maid down and literally asks her to smuggle out a box of the grandmother's unused gold and silver utensils.
Just casual embezzlement.
Right. His master plan is to secretly pawn his grandmother's tableware for 1,000 taels of silver just to pay for these mandatory gifts.
And he promises, he swears up and down that in 6 months, when that September rent finally arrives,
he's gonna fix it.
right, he says he will redeem the pawned silver and sneak the items back into the storeroom before anyone notices.
It is textbook embezzlement.
Completely. He is borrowing against assets he does not own to cover unsecured social debts.
But the kicker, and this is my favorite part, is that his wife, Xifeng, is in the room.
Yes.
She's resting on the bed behind a screen, eavesdropping on this entire desperate pitch.
Just listening to him dig this hole.
Exactly. And when the maid leaves for a moment to check on the grandmother, Jillian turns to his wife and begs her to help him persuade the maid to commit this grand larceny.
And Xifeng sees right through him.
She does.
She flatly refuses. She tells him that when the September money finally does come in, he will conveniently forget all about redeeming the pawned goods.
Oh, 100%.
And when the grandmother eventually asks for her silver utensils, Xifeng points out that she will be the one blamed for mismanaging the household.
Right, because she runs the day-to-day.
Exactly. So she refuses to be the scapegoat for his liquidity crisis.
She knows he's going to leave her holding the bag. But then her maid, Pinger, chimes in with an incredibly calculated suggestion.
Kara's very sharp.
So sharp. Pinger says, wait, you were just saying we needed an extra 100 or 200 taels of silver for a project. Why don't you help him persuade the maid, but take a cut of the pawn money?
So good.
Xifeng effectively says, sure, I'll help you embezzle from your grandmother, but I want a 10 to 20% finder's fee.
It transforms from a desperate heist into literal marital extortion.
Yes. And Jillian complains about the fee, right? He makes a joke about how greedy they're being.
Which is a mistake.
A huge mistake.
Yep.
Because Xifeng just explodes.
She really does.
She goes on this massive, highly defensive rant about her own family's wealth. She talks about how she brought millions into the marriage and how the Jia family is actually living off her Wang family's money.
Right.
She literally says that if you just swept the cracks of her Wang family's floorboards, the dust you collect would be enough to feed the Jia family for a lifetime.
That floorboard dust line is so iconic. And what's fascinating here is the mechanics of the marital power dynamic in Qing Dynasty China.
Right, let's talk about that.
Because Xifeng isn't just defending her pride here. She is enforcing her dominance, using the only legal protection she has, her dowry.
Because in this era, a woman's dowry remained her personal property, right? It didn't automatically absorb into the husband's family accounts.
Exactly. A dowry was designed to be a woman's safety net.
Oh, that makes sense.
If she was divorced or widowed, that wealth went with her. And Xifeng comes from the Wang family, who were historically heavily involved in maritime trade and diplomacy.
Ah, so they had actual liquid cash.
Yes. Massive reserves of actual liquid cash.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the Jia family, whose wealth was all tied up in land and titles.
So her dowry is basically this untouchable trust fund, and she is using it as both a shield and a sword.
She is reminding Jillian that she is the financial anchor of this sinking ship. She's basically telling her husband, you are coming to me to beg for help, to steal from your own grandmother because your aristocratic family is secretly broke.
Right.
Do not mock my terms, because without my family's floorboard dust, you'd be destitute.
It is so ruthless. So, okay, she successfully extorts her own husband for a cut of the stolen pawn money. She secures her a couple hundred taels of silver.
Mission accomplished for her.
Right. But I was reading ahead in the notes to see what she actually needed that specific money for, and the justification reveals, honestly, the darkest core of this entire society.
Yeah, it really reveals how face is weaponized.
So Xifeng tells her husband she needs this extorted money to fund the death anniversary memorial for Yu Erji. Now, for context, Yu Erji was someone Xifeng had a deeply problematic, historically toxic relationship with.
That is putting it mildly.
Right, very mildly.
Yeah.
But Xifeng explicitly admits to her husband that throwing this lavish memorial is pure, unadulterated optics.
Her exact phrasing in the text is chilling. She says she needs to throw dirt to blind the eyes of those behind.
Throw dirt to blind the eyes.
Yeah.
The cynicism is just staggering. She openly admits she just wants to put on a good show for the public. She claims they were sisters to the outside world, pointing out that Yu Erji left no heirs behind to care for her spirit.
So Yifeng has to do it.
Right. She says she must step up, look magnanimous, and burn a ton of money to prove her virtue.
She is literally demanding hush money, from a grandmother heist to fund a PR stunt for a deceased relative she actively disliked.
I mean, you listening right now, try to imagine funding your flawless, #blessed philanthropic public persona by secretly pawning your family's stolen silverware.
It's madness.
It's complete madness.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is an act of sheer survival.
How so?
In this aristocratic world, public reputation is a harder, more valuable currency than silver.
Wow.
Maintaining the public illusion of a harmonious, pious, and grieving family is mandatory.
Because the moment you admit you can't afford the memorial, the illusion shatters.
Exactly.
Wow.
And when the illusion shatters, the entire ecosystem collapses. The merchants who extend them credit, they will call in their debts.
The political allies will distance themselves.
The servants will stop obeying orders. I mean, they are broke, yes, but they must spend lavishly on these funerals and anniversaries, or the social structure that gives them their power will evaporate overnight.
So throwing dirt in the eyes of the public is the only way to keep the creditors at bay.
That's exactly it.
So we're seeing how they operate in all directions, right? We've seen how they manipulate the grandmother above them by stealing her gold.
Yeah.
We've seen how they extort each other beside them. And the natural progression of this desperate, claustrophobic panic is that it inevitably bleeds downward.
It always does.
They crush the people below them.
This is where the structural violence of their financial panic really shows itself. The stress has to go somewhere.
Right, so enter the subplot of Wanger's wife.
Okay.
She is a servant who comes to Xifeng with a problem. Her 17-year-old son wants to marry a maid named Caixia.
Right.
Now, Caixia was recently dismissed from the household by Lady Wang because she was getting older, had a lot of illnesses. Caixia's parents were told to go find her a husband.
Right. Standard procedure.
So Wanger's son wants her, but Caixia's parents flat out refuse the match. They think they can do better.
Which really highlights the intense hierarchy even among the servant class. I mean, a mega household like this had hundreds of servants, and they had their own brutal internal politics.
Yeah, everybody has a status.
Exactly. Caixia's parents clearly believe their daughter, despite being dismissed, holds more social capital than Wanger's son.
But when Jia Lian hears about this romantic rejection, this guy who was just whining about not having enough silver to pay his basic bills.
Who literally had to steal from his grandmother.
Right. Suddenly he turns into an absolute tyrant.
Oh, yeah.
He immediately abuses his power to force the marriage. He tells the servant not to worry about the parents' refusal. He threatens to send 2 authoritative men with betrothal gifts directly to Caixia's parents.
Basically saying, tell them it's my idea, and if they refuse, they answer directly to me.
He completely overrides the consent of the parents and the girl.
It's a classic displacement of anxiety.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. Jia Lian has zero control over his massive debts. He has zero control over his wife's extortion. He has zero control over his impending social obligations.
Right.
But he has absolute crushing power over the lives of these servants. So he exercises it brutally just to feel like he's still in charge of something.
It is incredibly petty, and Xifeng is no better.
No, not at all.
In the very same conversation, she pivots to demanding that her servant collect all her outstanding usury debts by the end of the year.
Right, her loan sharking.
Yeah, she basically says, collect every single penny out on the street. I don't care if my reputation is already bad. If I wait another year, these expenses will eat me alive.
She's squeezing everyone.
It totally reminds me of a modern corporation that is secretly failing.
Right. So they enact brutal, sweeping mass layoffs to artificially inflate their quarterly stock price.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
They are crushing the workers at the bottom just to maintain the illusion of profitability for the shareholders at the top.
It's a perfect structural comparison. They are liquidating human capital to buy another quarter of prestige.
Wow.
And this final scene we're going to talk about synthesizes all the pieces of the puzzle we've been discussing. The facade is entirely hollow.
It really is. I was looking at the actual numbers Xifeng drops, and my jaw literally hit the floor.
The contrast is insane.
It is.
Huh?
She finally confesses what their actual operating budget is. She says their official monthly allowance, the money meant to sustain her, Jia Lian, And their 4 main maids is barely 20 taels of silver.
20 taels.
Right, and she explicitly notes that 20 taels is barely enough to cover 3 to 5 days of their expected lifestyle.
5 days.
The gap between their allowance and their mandatory performance of wealth is mathematically impossible to bridge.
So how has she been bridging it? I mean, besides the grandmother heist.
By secretly selling the house piece by piece.
Literally.
Literally. She admits she recently pawned 4 or 5 boxes of unused large copper and tin items just to scrape together 300 taels to cover Lady Wang's expenses.
And again, that's paying for a face-saving gift to hide the shame of insolvency.
Exactly. And she confesses to selling a gold chiming clock for 560 taels of silver.
So the grand, untouchable Jia family is basically living check to check, except the checks are just whatever family heirlooms they can hawk at the pawn shop without the grandmother noticing.
Precisely. And the psychological toll of this reality is finally catching up to them.
Right.
At the very end of the excerpt, Xifeng shares a prophetic dream.
Oh, the dream is so wild.
It is. She dreams of a stranger who comes to her demanding 100 rolls of brocade for an imperial concubine.
But Xifeng notes that it wasn't their family's concubine, right?
Exactly. It was an unfamiliar one. And when Xifeng refuses, the stranger tries to physically snatch the brocade from her, and the struggle wakes her up.
So what does this all mean? The dream, the fighting over the fabric?
Well, the stranger demanding the brocade represents the encroaching reality,
Okay.
the demands of the outside world, the imperial system, the mandatory social obligations they're coming for whatever wealth is left.
Oh, wow.
This unfamiliar concubine symbolizes forces entirely outside their control that will soon demand tribute from a hollowed-out family that can no longer provide it.
That is so bleak.
They are fighting over scraps of fabric in a dream because they have absolutely nothing left in reality. Meanwhile, imagine you are standing right behind the scenes at this massive, big-budget theatrical production.
Oh, yeah. Like a huge Broadway setup.
Exactly. And from the audience's perspective out front, the castle on the stage looks like it's built of solid stone, right? It's majestic, it's intimidating, and it looks permanent.
Right. Totally immovable.
Yeah. But because you're standing backstage, you can see the actual reality of it. That stone wall is just painted canvas.
Just a facade.
Exactly. A total facade. And holding up that canvas are like dozens of exhausted, terrified stagehands.
Oh, man.
They're desperately bracing these wooden struts, and they are absolutely terrified to let go because they know that if the audience sees even a single tremor in that wall, the entire illusion of the show is just, destroyed.
Xifeng.
She is powerful, she is sharp, and into her domain walks this young palace eunuch.
Just casually strolling in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this eunuch has been sent by a highly placed imperial official, Grand Tutor Xia. And the eunuch makes this very polite, softly spoken request.
Right. Very polite on the surface.
Very polite. He explains that the Grand Tutor is looking to buy a house, but he's just, a little bit short on cash. So he would like to, quote-unquote, borrow 200 taels of silver.
I think we need to pause here and just establish the actual weight of that request.
Yeah.
Because saying 200 taels can sound kind of abstract to us now.
Yeah, it just sounds like a number.
Right. So a single tael was roughly 37 grams of pure silver.
Wow. Okay.
And in this era, an ordinary working-class family could easily live for an entire year on just a handful of taels.
A whole year.
A whole year. So when this eunuch asks to borrow 200 taels, he isn't asking for walking around money. In modern terms, this is like a government regulator walking into a CEO's office and asking for a casual, undocumented loan of a few $100,000.
And it is heavily, heavily implied that this quote-unquote loan is never going to be repaid.
Oh, never. It's gone.
What really fascinates me is how Xifeng, this middle manager wife, actually handles this. Because her husband, Jia, who co-manages the house, he actually physically hides in the inner room to avoid dealing with the shakedown.
He just totally bails on her.
He literally bails. He leaves Xifeng completely alone to face the music. So she sits this young eunuch down, serves him tea, and she projects this aura of absolute, untouchable financial dominance.
It's quite the performance.
It is. She basically laughs the request off. She tells the eunuch What is this talk of returning it? We have plenty of silver, take it now, and if we ever run short, we'll just borrow from you.
Which is hilarious.
Right. She puts on a flawless performance of just unlimited wealth.
But, the reality behind that performance is absolute desperation.
Oh, completely.
The household does not have the liquid cash to cover this demand. They just don't.
They are totally broke on paper. I mean, Xifeng has to secretly summon her trusted servant, Pinger, and basically tell her to go into her private quarters and grab her own personal jewelry.
Right, her own stuff.
Yeah, just to pawn it to raise the funds. And the sources are incredibly specific about the items Pinger brings out in this brocade box.
They really are. It's fascinating.
There are two necklaces. One is this gold filigree piece, heavily laden with pearls the size of lotus seeds.
Which is already incredibly valuable.
Massive pearls. And the other is made of coinolist kingfisher feathers, meticulously embedded with precious gems.
Yeah, and that detail, the kingfisher feathers, is crucial for understanding the stakes here.
Wait, really? Why is that so important?
So the art form is called tiansui. Artisans would take the iridescent blue feathers of living kingfishers.
Actual feathers.
Yeah, actual feathers. And they would painstakingly glue them onto silver or gold bases. It was an agonizingly slow, labor-intensive process, making these pieces just astronomically expensive.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they weren't just, pretty jewelry. They were highly restricted status symbols that signaled direct proximity to the imperial court. I mean, they're practically crown jewels.
So she is basically pulling the Mona Lisa off her living room wall to take to a pawn shop.
Pretty much, yeah.
That is wild. So she manages to raise 400 taels of silver from pawning these absolute masterpieces. She hands half to the eunuch, and then she allocates the other half to fund the family's upcoming Mid-Autumn Festival.
Right, which is another mandatory public display of wealth. They can't skimp on that either.
Exactly. Now, I have to push back on the underlying logic here. Because when Jialin comes out of hiding later, he complains that just the day before, a totally different eunuch, Eunuch Zhou, came by and demanded 1,000 taels.
Right, it's relentless.
It operates exactly like a mafia protection racket, just, dressed up in silk robes.
That's a great way to put it.
But why doesn't a family with this much historical power just look at these guys and say, no, the vault is closed?
Well, what's fascinating here is that you are hitting on the invisible currency of this entire society.
Okay, what do you mean?
The currency isn't the silver, it's political survival. You see, the palace eunuchs weren't just messengers. They lived inside the Forbidden City.
Right.
They were the physical attendants to the emperor and his inner circle. And that means they controlled the flow of information.
Oh, so they have direct access.
Exactly. They decided whose petitions were read first, and they could easily start a whisper campaign in the ear of the most powerful people on Earth.
So they are the ultimate gatekeepers.
Exactly that. To say no to Grand Tutor Xi's eunuch isn't just declining a financial transaction.
It's making an enemy.
Worse, it signals to the highest levels of government that your family is either no longer wealthy enough to be useful or no longer loyal enough to be trusted.
Oh, wow.
And either of those signals is a political death sentence. If the sharks in the capital sense that this great aristocratic house is struggling to scrape together 200 taels, the political vultures will circle.
And they'll just tear the house apart?
Yeah, the family will be stripped of its remaining titles and lands overnight. Pawning that priceless kingfisher necklace is the agonizing price Xifeng pays to keep the stagehands holding up the painted canvas.
Man. And that massive financial hemorrhage at the top of the house triggers this immediate visceral reaction down the chain of command. Gravity just takes over.
Oh, absolutely. It always flows downhill.
When an institution loses that much capital, the panic cascades directly into middle management. Right after the eunuch leaves, Jialin steps out to his study and meets with his chief household manager, Lin Zixiao.
Right.
And Lin brings a terrifying piece of political gossip. A powerful government official that they are heavily connected to, a man named Jia Yukun, has just been demoted.
Right, so external political pressure instantly becomes an internal crisis.
Because they're tied to him.
Exactly. In a system built entirely on patronage and alliances, a disgraced ally is a massive liability.
So Jialin's reaction is super swift. He insists they must completely distance themselves from this disgraced official to avoid being implicated in whatever brought him down.
Which makes sense politically.
Right. He even acknowledges that the senior leaders of the family, the patriarch, Jia Zheng, and another elder, Jia Zhen, they actually like this official and socialize with him.
Yeah, they're buddies.
But Jialin unilaterally decides to cut ties anyway. And then Lin Zixiao, the manager, pivots straight into a brutal corporate restructuring pitch.
Oh, it's ruthless. He recognizes the existential threat and responds with pure, cold economic calculations.
He really does.
He wants to slash the operating budget by just cutting the headcount.
Yeah, he proposes releasing the older servants who aren't deemed quote-unquote useful anymore. He wants to drastically reduce the staffing ratios, taking contingents of 8 maids down to 6 and groups of 4 down to 2.
Just slashing jobs everywhere.
Everywhere. And his grand finale for balancing the books is to systematically marry off all the older maids in the household in one massive wave.
Right, entirely to save the money spent on their daily food rations and monthly allowances.
It's crazy. I read Lin Zixiao's strategy, and I instantly pictured a modern corporate crisis consultant.
Oh, 100%.
You know, a company is secretly bankrupt, so the consultant walks in and says, freeze all hiring, execute a mass layoff of the lower-level staff, and for PR's sake, scrub that disgraced board member from the website immediately.
It is the exact same playbook. You isolate the brand from contagion, and you dump the lowest tier liabilities to free up cash flow.
But here is where their logic completely breaks down for me.
Oh, how so?
If the situation is truly this catastrophic, if Xifeng is pawning her personal heritage to pay off corrupt gatekeepers, and Lin Zixiao is firing half the staff just to save on a few bowls of rice, why doesn't Jia Lian just walk into the main hall, hand the ledger to the patriarch Jia Zheng and say, boss, we are going under?
Ah, because that would require bypassing the psychological defense mechanisms that middle management has completely built into the system.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
The sources give us a brilliant, really damning illustration of toxic positivity in leadership.
Toxic positivity.
Yeah. Take a look at Jia Lian's explicit reasoning in the text. He tells Lin Zixiao that they cannot possibly inform the patriarch, Jia Zheng, about the financial ruin or the political danger.
Right.
Why? Because Jia Zheng has just returned home. He is currently, quote-unquote, happy, and they do not want to ruin his good mood with bad news.
It's literal corporate gaslighting.
Exactly.
You're literally letting the empire collapse to protect the CEO's vibes.
Yes. Protect the vibes at all costs.
It reminds me of the watermelon status in modern project management. Have you heard of that?
Watermelon status? No. What's that?
It's where middle managers report that a failing project is green and healthy on the outside, even though they know it is bleeding red on the inside. Like a watermelon.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy. The watermelon status is a great way to visualize it, because in highly hierarchical, punitive systems, bringing bad news to the absolute top is incredibly dangerous for the messenger.
Right. They don't want to get their heads chopped off.
Exactly. So Jia Lian and Xifeng absorb the immense stress of the external extortion, and they force these draconian budget cuts onto the people below them, all while actively shielding the executive leadership from reality.
Which is just a recipe for disaster.
It creates a fatal bottleneck. The only person with the actual authority to fundamentally alter the institution's course, Jia Zheng, is operating with completely falsified data.
Which means the people paying the highest price for this systemic failure are the ones at the very bottom, who have absolutely zero authority.
Exactly, the most vulnerable ones.
Because when Lin Zixiao makes that cold, spreadsheet-level suggestion to marry off the older maids to save on rations, it instantly shifts from a theoretical budget cut to a terrifying reality for one specific human being.
Right.
A maid named Kaixia.
And this is the moment the macro-level corruption trickles down and destroys an individual life.
It really is.
Kaixia is suddenly transformed from a person into a line-item expense that needs to be liquidated.
Right. So during this budget meeting, Jia Lian suddenly remembers a specific personnel issue.
Ah.
A servant named Wang has a son, and this son is requested to marry the maid Kaixia.
Right, he remembers this request.
Now, Lin Zixiao, the ruthless budget cutter, actually pushes back on this specific match. He reveals that Wanger's son is notorious outside the estate walls.
Yeah, he's got a terrible reputation.
The kid is a massive drunk, a rampant gambler, and thoroughly abusive. Meanwhile, Kaixia is described by everyone as an exceptional, high-quality person.
Yeah, she's universally well-regarded.
Right. So Jia Lian is genuinely shocked to hear this. He agrees it would be a tragic waste of a good person, and he vows to stop the marriage and punish the son.
For a brief moment, it looks like management is actually going to intervene and protect an employee.
Right up until the middle manager wife, Xifeng, gets involved.
Oh, yeah. Here comes the ego.
Because later that night, Xifeng has already independently promised Kaixia's mother that the marriage is approved.
Without consulting anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when Jialin confronts Xifeng and explains that this kid is a notorious, abusive drunk and they need to cancel the arrangement, Xifeng gets incredibly defensive.
She hates being challenged.
She completely dismisses his concerns. She argues that just because Wanger's family came to the estate as part of her own Wang clan retinue, Jialin is scrutinizing them too harshly.
Right, she makes it entirely about her.
Yes. She refuses to back down an inch, and she forces the disastrous marriage through.
It's a chilling display of how personal ego supersedes human welfare in a rigid hierarchy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I really want to unpack Xifeng's psychology here.
Okay, let's do it.
Because to me, she looks exactly like a manager who has made a terrible hiring decision, but absolutely refuses to admit fault purely because it was her idea.
Oh, absolutely.
She is doubling down on destroying Kaixia's life just to save face. Why is her ego worth more than this young woman's future?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the precarious nature of Xifeng's power. She wields immense authority in the household, but she married into the Jia family.
Right, she's technically an outsider.
Exactly. Her ultimate loyalty and the source of her independent strength stems from her own powerful Wang clan. Her retinue of servants people like Wanger are the physical symbols of her political capital within her new home.
Oh, so they are her base of power.
Exactly. If she allows Jialin to reject Wanger's son, she isn't just agreeing that the boy is a drunk. In her mind, she is allowing her husband to devalue her political currency.
So admitting her servant's son is a liability is a direct threat to her own sovereignty.
Precisely. To admit fault is to show weakness. And as we saw with her flawless performance for the extortionist eunuch earlier.
Right, the tea and the confidence.
Right. Showing weakness is the one thing Xifeng will never, ever do. Kaixia is nothing more than collateral damage in a middle management turf war over political optics.
That is so dark. But the sources reveal something incredible next. Because Kaixia doesn't just passively accept being liquidated.
No, she fights back.
When she realizes what management is doing to her, she takes desperate strategic action. She secretly sends her sister, Yaxia, to beg a concubine, Zhao Yinyang, to intervene.
Right?
Kaixia's plan is to have Zhao Yinyang ask the patriarch to assign Kaixia to her own son, Xifeng, instead.
She is utilizing a shadow organizational chart.
A shadow org chart.
Yeah. When the official HR channels are correct, the people at the bottom have to map out the informal power structures just to survive.
It is brilliant, desperate back-channeling. And it is this specific, desperate move by a lowly maid that leads us straight to the very top of the family hierarchy. It exposes the ultimate, staggering irony of this entire empire. So Zhao Yinyang agrees to help Kaixia. She waits until nightfall, and she corners the patriarch, Jia Zheng, the man theoretically in charge of everything.
The guy they've been protecting from all the bad news.
Exactly. And she asks him to assign Kaixia to his son, Jia Huan.
This is the moment we finally see the executive leadership in action.
And his response is unbelievable. Jia Zheng completely dismisses the request. He casually states that he wants the boys to focus on studying for another year or two.
Right, the academic focus.
Yeah. And then he mentions, almost as an afterthought, that he already has a grand strategic vision in place. He says he has 2 specific maids picked out, one for Bao Yu and one for Huan, to be given to them in the future.
He is sitting in his office, proudly micromanaging a 5-year developmental plan for his subordinates.
Yes. And then Zhao Yinyang drops an absolute bombshell on him.
Oh, it's so good.
She looks at the patriarch of this massive empire and basically says, "What are you talking about? Bao Yu has already had a maid for 2 years."
The insulation is absolute.
So what does this all mean? I mean, it is hilarious and terrifying. Compare Jia Zhang to an out-of-touch corporate executive.
Oh, it's a perfect match.
He thinks he is a master strategist orchestrating the life events of his household, completely oblivious to the fact that the actual office floor has been running on its own entirely different set of rules.
Yeah, he's totally in the dark.
The events he thinks he is planning for the future already happened without his permission 2 years ago.